In today's CCTV America Insight, Syrian peace talks. The Assad government agreed on Wednesday to take part in the next attempt at a resolution next January in Geneva. But the Syrian Foreign Ministry says the government has no intention of handing over power to anyone. CCTV's United Nations correspondent Stephen Fee reports.
Speaking in Damascus, Syria's prime minister says the government will participate in the so-called Geneva II talks, scheduled to begin January 22, 2014.
The Syrian government is going to Geneva without any preconditions.
As envisioned by the UN, the long-delayed peace talks are meant to end the 2.5-year civil war that's killed over 100,000 people and displaced an estimated 9 million Syrians, more than a third of Syria's pre-war population. The talks also aim to create a transitional government, but Syrian officials say they have no intention of giving up power.
We will go to Geneva, not to surrender power as we always repeat, but to participate with others in authority.
Such assertions add to the difficulties UN leaders face in convening the Geneva negotiations. The list of attendees hasn't been finalized, and there's no consensus on the eventual role, if any, played by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. 3 of the permanent UN Security Council members, the US, France, and the United Kingdom, say President Assad has lost the authority to govern and must step down. What's more, it's still unclear who will represent the opposition. The Free Syrian Army says they'll keep fighting until they're assured of Assad's ouster. And the Syrian National Coalition says they'll make a decision on whether or not to participate in Geneva II next month. Stephen Fee, CCTV at the United Nations in New York.
While anticipation is building ahead of these talks, the fighting in Syria has found its way to even relatively safe and upscale areas of the Syrian capital. The latest threat in Damascus, are mortars fired by the rebels. CCTV's Ali Ibrahim is there.
Anyone who walks down this Damascus street understands they are taking a great risk. The new danger casting a shadow on the city is the threat of mortars, handmade shells with low accuracy fired from rebel-held areas into Damascus, targeting and often missing government buildings and ending up in the most unusual places like this cemetery in Geneva near Damascus. Rebels say they use mortars to retaliate against the army's shelling of their fighters, but the residents of the Syrian capital beg to differ.
ضعفاء النفوس عم يطلقوا عشوائي. عرفت شلون؟ الله يحمينا ويحمي هالبلد بحمى الرحمة.
لو كان خايف كنت ما شفت العالم رايحة جاي، وبالتالي الخوف ما عاد له قيمة، يعني دائما العادة إلفة.
A recent mortar attack hit a school in the historic Bab Shirki neighborhood, killing 4 children and 1 adult, and left 13 wounded. At the children's funeral, emotions were running high.
يستهدفوا الأطفال. هذا شغلهم، ليش الأطفال؟ ما هن عم يستهدفوا نساء وشيوخ وخوارنة وكهنة ومطارنة، عم يستهدفوا كل الطوائف، فما عندهم إشكال يعني.
The mortars have caused significant damages in many places, but few military gains for the rebels. Despite the danger, life goes on, even in Damascus University, where a mortar attack last year killed more than a dozen students. Military experts say there are little the Syrian army can do to stop the mortars, as the concept is very basic, as seen in this rebel YouTube clip. Mortar attacks are more frequent in areas adjacent to rebel-held areas, especially in Jeramana, Qassa, and Babduma.
It's a difficult choice that many are making in Syria nowadays, deciding to leave their houses, knowing that death might fall upon them from the sky at any minute. But this is only one of many other difficult choices that Syrians have to make every day. Everyone in this busy Damascus market have made their choices for today. Ali Ibrahim, CCTV, Damascus.
So with the situation in Syria as dire as ever, hopes for a peaceful resolution are now turning to those January peace talks we mentioned a moment ago. But with the government saying it won't cede any power, is there any hope of a peace agreement? I pose that question to Ivan Elin, director of the Center on Peace and Liberty.
Well, it is a big issue because, of course, on the other side, the opposition says, well, our goal is to get rid of Assad. And, of course, Assad says, no way, I might even run for re-election. So their goals are different. They're supposed to have some sort of a transitional government, but, of course, the government wants Assad to be the central focus of that transitional government. and the opposition wants them gone. So that is a major stumbling block before they even get started with the talks.
Let me talk to you about a new report that was just issued today from the group Human Rights Watch. It reports that women refugees are being sexually harassed by employers, landlords, even aid groups in Lebanon. What would a peace deal mean for the refugees that are just kind of scattered throughout the region?
Well, hopefully it would matter for the 9 million people that have been displaced, both internally and you know, in the other countries. Hopefully that would mean that they would get to go back home, or what's left of their homes. But of course you have some of the homes that are destroyed. There's a lot of destruction. So of course that's not a panacea, but it would also help the aid groups get in there with aid that's not being reached, because a lot of these internally displaced people are, you know, they can't be given aid because of the fighting, and so you have all these problems. So a peace deal would help out a lot. It wouldn't solve every problem.
We've seen fits and starts before, where, well, there may be talks, then there's no talks. And I think this kind of gets to the heart of things. What are your thoughts about actually the conference itself starting on time, that there be a resolution? Do you think things are doomed before they even begin?
Well, I don't think it looks very good. I'm hopeful that they could do something. Russia and the U.S. are backing this, but the problem is the opposition is so, you know, disparate and fragmented, yes, that they don't know who's going to lead the negotiations. So I think, and some of these groups are very hostile towards any negotiations, the Al-Qaeda, you know, the radical Islamists. So, you know, we don't even know which opposition groups are going to participate. One has said it's not going to participate, and we don't know what the position of the other groups are.
And one final question. At one time, it was Assad against the rebels, but now, even within the rebels, there's discord. This thing is actually kind of mushroomed into something even more serious in many respects.
Well, the Al-Qaeda groups are going after the non-Al-Qaeda groups, and so there's internal fighting between the groups, and that there's been accusations that by the non-Al-Qaeda groups that the Al-Qaeda groups wait until you know, the regime is attacking them, and then the Al-Qaeda groups also attacks in other places, so they, you know, they have to trying to shift troops around. They can't do it, so Al-Qaeda, I think, is taking advantage of the fighting between the government and the mainstream groups. So you have a mess. I mean, and I'm not sure that even peace talks would have to sort out some sort of a decentralized autonomy for various groups like the Kurds. The regime could have, you know, control part of Syria, because it only controls part of Syria, and the non, you know, but then you come down to what do you do about Al-Qaeda? So it's a really, even if you could get the other groups to agree, well, we're just going to run our own areas, the Al-Qaeda groups may not agree. And then the two Al-Qaeda groups don't even agree with each other. One is trying to overthrow the government. The other one is ISIS is trying to create an Islamic State with parts of Syria and Iraq.
Ivan Eland, it is complicated. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.